Welcome to the live show. This is Shweta Karnati, and welcome to this special immigration talk show with our special guest, Ms. Sheela Murthy, the advocate and the immigrant specialist, the attorney in immigration. And if you have any questions related to the latest updates in the immigration process or any changes, you can call up on the number that is displayed on the screen, and the attorney will be answering your questions. And this is Shweta Karnati, and let's begin the show. Hello, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon to you, Shweta, and good afternoon to all of you, our wonderful, esteemed listeners for Sakshi TV. Welcome.
Hello, ma'am. See, with the new government and all, the rules are actually changing a lot, and all the NRIs are very keen and concerned about what are the updates that are coming up in the immigration. So could you please give us a brief of, what are the changes that we can expect?
Sure. Before I get that, usually they invite me to talk a little bit about the firm and about the background and how to contact me for to make contact with the lawyers. So most of you may have already heard of the world's #1 most popular legal website, www.murthy.com, murthy.com. If you have emails, you can send them to law@murthy.com. If you prefer phone call, it's on the website. It's 410-356-5440. We have every week free Murthy bulletin. You can sign up for it. Every single week, we send out the latest changes that are happening in the world of immigration. We have free forum with over 150,000 people actively exchanging live information on Murthy.com. It's called the Murthy Forum. You are welcome to join that. That's 1.5 lakh people live asking questions. And of course, we have lawyers answering questions on a regular basis. We have different avenues because our goal is to educate, empower, and enlighten the immigrant so that they do not feel like they are traveling this immigration journey alone by themselves. So to get to your question, Swati, the question about what do we expect from the Biden administration? The Biden administration has made it very clear that they will plan to look at all of the changes that have occurred during the Trump administration under a magnifying glass or even maybe a microscope to examine which of them either need to be modified, changed, eliminated, or accepted as they are. To some extent, some of the changes the Biden administration will be able to put on hold right away because they have said that for every new regulation that was introduced in the past 60 days, that they are going to automatically put on a temporary hold so that they can study it and examine it. As most of our viewers already know, including till even 1 or 2 days before, the Trump administration had introduced many changes, including on the employer-employee relationship and clients, what to do, higher prevailing wages for H1B workers and almost making it like wage 4 is the only option, wage level 4. All of those that were introduced, people were in a panic, but Biden has said that all of those last minute, what they call midnight regulations, will be put on a minimum 60-day hold to be studied and examined to determine whether to stop it, to modify it, or whether to let it continue on its course. So that's like a very brief summary of what's going on. We can get into many more details should the viewers have additional questions.
Okay. We have a caller ready right now, but before taking the caller, I would like to just quickly read the disclaimer that the information provided on this show is not legal advice. It's just for the general information. And if you're looking answers for any specific questions, you can contact the attorney directly. Let's take the first caller. His name is Chetan. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi. Is this Chetan?
Yes.
Yeah, hi Chetan. Please address your question now. Please say your question.
I have a question. I tried to find the answer online, but I could not find a firm answer. This seems to be like a gray area. So my question is about the H4 dependents who come into U.S., who are physically located into U.S. Are they allowed to work remotely from home for their previous companies? For example, if a person was in India and he was working for a company, any company, and he or she came with their spouse to U.S. and they physically relocated, and they're physically located in U.S., but can they keep working for their original company remotely? Now, almost the entire world is working from home nowadays. Is there any clarification from either the Department of State or the USCIS on H4 dependent visa who do not have any EADs, but they are physically located in the US? Can they remotely work? And they can get paid in their native banks, in the native currency. For example, if somebody was working in India, they can keep getting paid in Indian rupees in the Indian banks. Is there any clarification
it's a great
on
question,
this issue?
Chetan. It's a very good question. It's something that often comes up. In fact, in a consultation just this afternoon, somebody asked me the exact opposite, very similar question about if I can go to some other country, whether it's India, Australia, why can't I continue to work for my US employer in United States? Because anyway, everyone is working remotely from home. So it's another take on that question. So it's not US Department of State, it's not even Department of Homeland Security, Chetan. The law that the main federal agency involved with this is called the US Department of Labor, or DOL. The US Department of Labor position is that if you are based physically in the United States, you have to comply with US federal laws, US immigration laws, US Department of Labor laws, minimum wage laws. So if that spouse, for example, is working physically in the United States, yes, I hear what you're saying, but the money's, they're working for an Indian bank or some other foreign country, and the money is going into a foreign country bank account, you are still in violation of US law technically. The problem that occurs in your kind of example, in this example, is that the laws on the textbooks, on the books, the laws, the regulations, the policies, all of them are based on a pre-internet day and age when a person was physically working for a US employer when they went to another country. Nobody has changed the rules and the laws as to what should change or how can this work when the world is flat and we are all working on the internet through wires. So I see what you're saying. The question sometimes people ask me is, but how will anybody catch me? I may never get caught. That's true. 9 out of 10 of us may be driving over the speeding limit. We may not get caught, but we are still breaking the law and breaking the rules if we are driving over 55 miles in a 55-mile zone. So in this case, the spouse on the H4 would be in violation of US Department of Labor laws regarding payment of wages and US Department of Homeland Security laws and USCIS laws regarding needing some type of work permission, and you need a US employer to do the sponsorship. If the spouse wants to stay in India and work, of course, there's no violation of US law, but the minute a person steps foot onto US soil, you now have to comply with US laws, all laws, whether it is US Department of Labor law, Department of Homeland Security law, Department of State laws, etc. So I know you want a different answer, Chetan, but I can only tell you what the law allows. Next caller.
Yeah, we have another caller from Florida. Hello.
Hello. Hi. This is Venkat from Florida.
Hi, Venkat. Please tell what is your question.
Ma'am, I have a small question. So I'm on H1B right now. So if I want to go to India for stamping, does the President proclamation has any effect on the stamping?
So yes, unfortunately, the presidential proclamation that Donald Trump passed last year, June 22nd of 2020, which he said would be valid originally until December 31st, 2020. Then a few weeks before he left, 1 or 2 weeks before he left, he unfortunately extended that presidential proclamation until March 31st of 2021. So since it's only January 26th, by the way, happy Republic Day to all Indians and Indian nationals, it will impact you. Now, keep in mind that even the presidential proclamation itself, which prevented certain H1Bs and J1s and L1s, etc., from coming in, made an exception or an exemption for those whose work is in the national interest of the United States, those who are doing work that can be an exemption because of healthcare providing or providing food during COVID-19 pandemic, etc. Also, most consulates are closed except for emergency appointments because of COVID-19 restrictions, and most consular officers do not want to have in-person appointments. But also remember that the US Department of State issued a clarification a few weeks ago that if you have a prior H-1B visa stamp in your passport that has expired within the last 24 months, which is 2 years, then you will be allowed and able to send your passport through travel.state.gov to get your visa stamped from the consulate without attending a personal in-person interview at all. So you can actually send it in and get your extension of your visa and a waiver of the interview requirement if your prior H-1B visa stamp in your passport had expired within the last 24 months. So if that is the case, and if it's, let's say, 20 months are over, you need to leave quickly and plan to apply for that within the 24 months, because once the 24 months are over, then you will be forced, under the way the law is written and under the current Department of State regulations, to attend the in-person meeting, the personal meeting as required for a personal interview to obtain the new H-1 visa stamp in your passport. Hope that's helpful for you, Venkat.
Thank you, Venkat, for calling. And as we are talking about H-1B visas, can you please throw some light on the H-1B visa lottery system? Will there be any changes in the lottery system?
So it sounds like, based on the very latest that we heard as of, I think, 1 or 2 days ago, the new policies and the new rules introducing the new registration and the new system that Trump wanted to introduce, that the Trump administration was looking to introduce, will all be put on hold because the Biden administration has said that any and all regulations, what they call midnight regulations, will be put on a temporary hold in order to study it and figure out what needs to happen, which most likely means that we will be back to the same pre-registration system for the H-1B lottery, exactly like last year, because all of the changes as proposed by the Trump administration, the Biden administration has said very clearly that they would like to put all of those on a temporary hold to study, to research it, to determine whether it is good for the US economy and good for employers and employees, and ultimately it's going to benefit us or harm the United States in the long term.
We have another caller, Saikiran from Virginia. Hello, Saikiran.
Hi, hello.
Hello. Hi, Saikiran. Yeah, please ask your question.
Hi, I have a question regarding H-1B. So I'm hearing a lot from some of my friends regarding the wage level thing, which would be in effect this year. So I got some mixed response about that. Some of the people are saying that it would be in effect this year, and some of them are saying that it would be effective the coming year, the next year. So I just want to get a clarity on that. How does the lottery work? Is it based on the wage level, or is it like the old one, like the previous year one where they had the registration and the lottery?
Sure. So if you asked us last week, we would have, at the same time, we would have said, most likely the new wage level is in effect. We talked about it last week and the week before on Sakshi television, TV, where we said most likely it's going to be effective under wage level 4321. The good news, of course, as we just said, is that as soon as Biden became president on January 20th, which was less than a week ago, last Wednesday, as we all know, at 12 noon, besides all of the executive orders, the 18 executive orders he signed on day one, and then the next day he signed 10 more executive orders, he has made it very clear that every single regulation that was passed in the last 60 days by the Trump administration will be put on an automatic hold in order to study and understand the impact and the effect on H-1B employers, employees, and all kinds of businesses, and the impact on immigration. So as of today, what we believe, based on everything we've seen, is that both the U.S. Department of Labor and the U.S. CIS and Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, have said that they will not be able to use the new system of requiring the highest wage and the highest level of wage to be given preference or priority, because that would be a change in the actual statute or regulations as passed by the US Congress. And no administration, the executive branch, cannot make a substantive legal change in the law unless it goes through Congress with a new law that changes the interpretation. All that the executive branch can do is in gray areas, they can issue clarifications, which are called regulations, which is what Trump administration tried to do, is introduce regulations, but the regulations completely overhauled and changed the entire system of how they looked at stuff. So the bottom line is, as of today, it is most people and our understanding that none of these changes are going to be in effect for this year, at least for the next 60 days. And that's going to be too late because we're already preparing the registrations. Employers are already in the process. So it's none of those prevailing wage, the level 4, level 3, level 2, level 1, all of those are likely going to all be put on hold. That's why you're seeing a mixture, because if you looked at it a couple days ago, people thought it was going to continue. But as of today, the latest is that we're not going to have any of these changes because the Biden administration has put a temporary hold on all of the Trump administration midnight regulations.
Okay. Ma'am, can you please say, is there any news between, the employer and employee relationship in H1B purpose?
Sure, it's a great question. So it's one of those, again, things that keeps coming back over and over and over again. So what the Trump administration tried to do, even as of just 1 or 2 weeks ago, a week before he was leaving office, they tried to put something in place where they said that the end client would have to sponsor the H1B and provide proof that they are monitoring the employer-employee relationship. Why? Because under common law, employer-employee relationship can be established either by hiring, by paying for the salary or the wage, or by right to control the employee. So the Trump administration was saying, if you're an end client, since you're controlling what work the project the employee will do, or where they're going to work, or what kind of work they will perform, we believe that there is an employer-employee relationship, not just between the H1B employer and the H1B employee, but also between the H1B employee and the end client who is not involved in the H1 processing. So this whole issue of employer-employer relationship really became a big, big issue from January of 2010, 11 years ago, under the then Neufeld memo, if you remember. That's what started all of this mess. And since then, it became worse and worse and worse. And the Trump administration took it to a really terrible level because they were trying to change the law without changing the law. And the executive branch or the administration, because remember, there's a balance of powers in the United States. The Congress has to pass, the legislature and the Congress has to pass laws. The administration can only interpret gray areas of the law. If there is a black and white clear law, you are not allowed to interpret or change the interpretation of a law passed by Congress. And of course, if there is confusion in the interpretation, then you go to a judge or the courts of law to interpret the law. What was happening to a large extent in the last 4 years under the Trump administration was they were basically rewriting policies and laws in a way to impact adversely employers, employees, families, and anybody and everybody, trying to follow the proper rules and regulations and processes by changing the interpretation in a way that was not consistent with the actual statute passed by Congress. So the Biden administration has said, let's go back to the drawing board, look at everything carefully and ensure that every single interpretation, executive order, regulation of the Department of Homeland Security and USCIS is actually consistent with what the law requires. And is it really helping or harming the US economy? Is it helping to create more jobs or take away jobs? Because as all of us know, there's a lot of research that shows that H1B workers actually help to create more jobs for US workers. Because there is such a shortage of high-skilled, high-technical workers, professional workers, and each of these people coming in is actually helping to create more jobs. Of course, those who are anti-immigration will obviously say, no, that's not true. But at the end of the day, most neutral think tanks that have no skin in the game look at it as a benefit by having an H1B worker, especially when there is a shortage of skills. Because if all those employees work remotely offshore, like the first question that Chetan asked, if they work from India, they will not buy houses and cars and other benefits that will benefit and inure to the benefit of the US economy.
When we have a caller, Rakshita from Texas, let's take her call. Hello? Hello?
Rakshita,
Yes.
are you there?
Hello?
Yes, I'm there. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question related to the concurrent filing. Hello.
Okay. Well, yes, we can hear you. Please go
so
ahead.
my question here is like, when we say a concurrent filing, does the concurrent filing need to be with the same employer, or does a different employer, like employer A and the other project with the employer B, can have a concurrent filing?
So let's go back to the drawing nuts and bolts here, okay? So a green card, of course, as you know, is based on the concept of a future job offer, where an employer promises to hire an employee on a full-time and permanent basis to agree that I have a job, for example, as a software engineer, as a programmer analyst, whatever, data analyst, to work in my company on a full-time and permanent basis after the person gets the green card. So if employer A has done the perm and the I-140, you cannot now go to employer B and try to file based on that perm and that I-140 with employer A, file a 485 with employer B or employer C or employer D, because they need to go through the labor test and the labor market to convince the US Department of Labor that there is no other available US worker that can perform those jobs, those particular job duties based on education and work experience. So in your example that you were saying, can employer B or C or D do a concurrent 485 filing based on an approval with employer A's I-140 and labor? The answer is no, because again, it has to be you have to file it. Now, once the 485 has been filed and then it is pending for more than 180 days, then employer B or employer C or employer D can show that the job duties with my company are very identical, same or similar, in the same or similar job occupational classification. And then they can file what's called the supplement J to the I-485. But in order for that to occur, it has to be that the 485 was pending based on that I-140 approval for minimum 180 days. Then you can file a change of employer based on the supplement J with a new employer. I hope that's clear, Sangeeta.
Rakshita, I hope you got your answer for that. And ma'am, I have one more question. The DHS and DOL seeking to radically change in H1B process, for consulting firms. Can you explain more what it means?
The Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Labor were attacking. So it's a little bit of what I told you earlier about consulting companies, where the law, basically the way the US Department of Homeland Security was trying to change the rule was to introduce a brand new rule out of the blue, never even it was mentioned in the interim final rules. Suddenly they said there's a final rule where the end client has to now do the H1B sponsorship on behalf of the H1 worker. 100% there would have been lawsuits challenging that interpretation because it wasn't even in the interim final rules, so nobody could comment or respond to it. So there would have been lawsuits, litigations, and other pushback. But luckily, the Trump administration never put it into final action and motion. So at least that one particular regulation where the end client would be required or forced to file an H1B sponsorship along with the H1B employee, which wouldn't even make sense, because how would each of them be fighting on who is the H1 employee, who's going to pay the prevailing wage, who's going to monitor the worker, all of those. There would have been so many issues and gray areas that would have been triggered. So at this moment, that particular regulation is not even on the table. It's not in the card, so we don't have to worry about it. One less problem for all of us to worry about in today's very stressful immigration environment.
And let's talk about the H4 EAD process. As the president, Biden is sitting in the office right now. Do you think any premium processing will be available right now, or at least the process will be fastened?
Yes, I think a lot of people are very anxious and very nervous about H4 and H4 EADs, the issue regarding H4 EADs. The bottom line is there is actually a law passed by Congress just in the last 2 or 3 months, actually allowing premium processing for H4 EADs and all kinds of different kinds of EADs. The problem is that the Trump administration had purposefully tried not to issue regulations. They issued all other kinds of useless regulations to delay and put roadblocks, rather than following the mandate of Congress and issuing a regulation on how to implement a very simple policy, which is to expedite an H4 EAD. But remember, for 4 years, right from day one, the Trump administration had talked about eliminating the H4 EAD regulation altogether. But in the 4 years, they were not able to remove it. The way they tried to deal with it was to put as many roadblocks to delay H4 EAD issuance. And what used to take 2 or 3 months, or even 2 or 3 weeks with H1B premium processing and H4 getting the EAD with the H1B approval for the principal, is now taking between 8 to 12 months for the EAD approval. We do believe that the Biden administration will either issue regulations or make the process faster. We also know that the Trump administration issued the new requirement for biometrics for H4 EADs, which did not exist before that. We don't know how many of those things can be changed, how many of those will be modified, and whether the Biden administration will just issue the regulations and the form so that people can apply for the H4 EAD in the premium processing program the way you can for an H1B. And within 15 working days, you should be able to get your H4 EAD if the current Biden administration goes ahead and makes that possible.
And ma'am, we are almost on the end of the show right now. Are there any points that you would like to add on, for the viewers?
Sure. The one thing I definitely want to tell people is, I know there's a lot of gray area. Things are not very clear. We have all dealt with, I don't care what your political affiliation or political party, just for the record, I'm a registered independent for over 20 years. I have voted for equal number of Republicans and Democrats. I truly believe that the greatness of American democracy is where educated and intelligent and questioning electorate asks and demands answers from our politicians, because they are public servants and they're there to serve us. But there's been a lot of stress over the last 4 years because of the indiscriminate and unabashed bashing of employers, employees, and families that are simply following the law and doing everything correctly according to immigration laws and policies. We hope and trust that the Biden administration will look at everything without a jaded eye, with a clear set of eyes and a clear mandate from the American voter, the millions of people that did vote for the success and the new president, that they will clearly look at it and determine what is in the best interest of American employers, of American employees, of the economy, for COVID-19 vaccinations, so that we can get out of this economic and terrible healthcare pandemic and become once more most successful and economic leader in the world. So all I want to tell people is, I know there's a lot of gray area. It's not even been a week since Biden became the president. So just hang in there. Don't lose hope. Just believe in yourself. Believe that the system is going to work, because we all expect that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that Biden already in the past less than 1 week has done so much by putting everything on hold, studying everything, and saying, we will ensure that we will not go after and attack immigrants, because at the end of the day, America is a nation of immigrants. The Biden administration, of course, all of you know, Kamala Harris is the child of two immigrants, one from Jamaica and one from India, of course. Mother Shamla Gopalan, she's the child of immigrants. She's a proof of how great that she can come in as an individual, become a lawyer, become the attorney general for the largest state in the largest enforcement agency in the United States, the Attorney General's office, the state of California, and now as our vice president of this great country, the United States of America. So I think we're going to see sensibility. I think things are going to look better. So hang in there, be hopeful, and just wait. It's not even a week, and already we're seeing so many changes and improvements. So good luck, everybody. Happy New Year and happy Republic Day to all of our viewers.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you so much for answering all the questions and giving the new updates on immigration. And viewers, I hope you all enjoyed. And at the same time, I hope this show was helpful for you too. And we'll meet you again next week with another set of questions regarding the immigration process. And this is Shweta signing off for now. Bye-bye.